This is Troutbitten in Deep. Guest interviews that dive into the details. Essential conversations for anglers who share an addiction for the woods and the water. This is Troutbitten. All right, we're going in deep with John Shaner about dry fly leader design. Thanks for being here, my friend. Thanks very much, John.
Thank you, Dominic. Thanks for thinking of me and having me on.
Yeah, good to see you. We first met at Jonas's place at the Feathered Hook. He's right there beside one of the big rivers, and I'd come off the water and I talked to him a little bit. He said, "You should stick around and meet John Shaner." And I'm in classic introvert style. I said, I'm going to go home. But he convinced me, stick around. And that was a great conversation. And we've had a few since. And kind of just gelled right away, right?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we see a lot of things the same way.
And we talked a lot that evening about dry fly leaders, and leader design. For me, you were one of the first guys that I had met, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. We just kind of see things the same way. Would you say that your dry fly leader philosophy, if you want to call it that, is a little different than most?
I think, I really do. I think the leader is probably the least understood and the least appreciated part of our tackle.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at our standard, of course, we're crazy about rods and we really like reels and we get wrapped up in lines, let's say, and fly pattern is always a thing. But leaders are a very prosaic yet absolutely crucial part of our tackle. And I am generally, especially in dry fly fishing, I'm generally as every bit as concerned about how my leader is functioning as I am about the fly pattern.
Oh, yeah, same.
And, a lot of people don't look at it that way. But my philosophy on leaders has changed over the years. It's been more of a trajectory, or maybe an odyssey through leaders.
I like that.
I think the first thing to understand is the function of leaders.
Sure.
Of course, a leader, whatever it is, whatever fly fishing discipline we're going to be involved in, creates a connection between the fly line and the fly.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's an invisible connection is up to debate. I think, as a lot of people do, that the fish, no matter how small it is, the fish see the tippet.
Sure.
They simply ignore it. It's just like the hook.
Yeah.
They see the hook, but these are things that are foreign to their environment, and they just simply ignore it. And I won't even say choose to ignore it. They just aren't wired to notice it.
I'm with you.
The other things about leaders is it can determine how the fly not only floats. We talk about dead drift a lot, and I'm sure we'll get back around to that. It determines how the fly floats, and actually also how you can float the fly.
Mm-hmm.
Vince Marinero makes a great point when he started fishing with very fine tippets back in the 40s, that he found that the one of the main advantages to fine tippets was it didn't push the fly so deeply into the surface film.
Interesting. Never thought of that.
Never thought about that. Yeah, and that's now he was using very small flies and silkworm gut, but it was equivalent to our modern 7X. It was it was about 4/1000ths of an inch.
No kidding, back then.
A quarter-pound test is what it was.
That'd be tough to land the big boys on.
Yeah, and they didn't, and that's that's an interesting aside here.
Yeah, it is.
We fish now with nylon, of course, and nylon really changed fly fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Because before that, even things like Atlantic salmon leaders were only testing 5 or 6 pounds in some of these very large sizes. So, which again leads me down to another path, is how little pressure we actually put on fish. We don't realize how little pressure we put on fish. And that's germane to the topic. Because a lot of people are afraid, a lot of anglers are afraid to fish finer diameter tippets because they're afraid they're going to break the fish off. And my usual setup, and for the dry fly fishing that I do, and and I think this will give us kind of a starting point as to a lot of my philosophy, is an 8.5 to 9 foot fore weight, generally of a softer, not real. I don't like hyper fast rods.
Okay.
And a big part of that is because I want to be able to protect finer tippets
Okay.
on the strike and other things. And I do fish bamboo rods, but I'm certainly not a snob about it. I fish them where they're appropriate, and I fish graphite at least 60% of the time. So that's really not the point there. But I don't think we realize how little pressure we actually put on the fish.
I agree.
So if someone just wants one takeaway from this, just go tie a known 4-ounce weight to your standard setup and try to lift it with your favorite rod.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to bend that rod right over.
Oh yeah.
So the point is, we don't put anywhere near as much pressure as we
right.
think
That's just 4 ounces.
Yeah.
Right.
When of course, when you get into the lighter tippets, you have other issues.
Mm-hmm.
You have abrasion, and you have knot strength, and you have turnover with larger flies and so forth. So you have to match things up. But I guess don't I start right off by saying don't be afraid of light tippets and trying them.
Sure. What's your standard tippet size? Let's say you're fishing a size 18. Are you matching it?
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting story, and just in my own evolution. When I was younger, here in the Catskills, and the West Branch is home and my home river, and I've been fishing here many years. 20 years ago, we kind of start the season with the Hendricksons, and 20 years ago, I'd use 4X. And then for a long, long time, it was 5X. And then as you got into the summer, maybe you'd switch to 6X, maybe. And I knew a lot of the older guys would never, they thought 6X was too light. Now I'm fishing Hendricksons with 6X
to start.
And by the end of May, I'm on 7X for the rest of the year.
So tell me why do you go lighter? Why do you go?
Mostly drag.
Yeah, it's easier to get a drag-free drift with a
long tippets. And the West Branch itself, and a lot of tailwaters and spring creeks and chalk streams and limestone streams and so forth, they may look flat, but as anybody that's fished them knows, they're made up of many, many little tons.
All kinds of little currents, yeah.
Yeah, and the lighter stuff simply doesn't react as much to those currents as the heavier stuff does.
Sure.
And again, this comes back to drag. You will never eliminate drag, ever.
That's a good thing to acknowledge as any angler.
Yeah, you will never eliminate drag.
Just aiming for perfection.
As long as that leader is attached to a fly line and subsequently to a rod. And our job is to try to reduce that drag as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a leader's got to do a couple of things. It's got to have that connection, and you've also got to be able to deliver the fly accurately.
Yeah.
And control the slack in it, which are almost mutually exclusive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fine balance, right? And we're going to talk about what I call a slack leader design. And like you say, the goal is to introduce that slack, is to push curves this way or that way, or maybe S curves leading up to it. And then at the same time be accurate. You make a good point there. Yeah, yeah.
Well, accuracy, I think, is a really appreciated
I know.
Focus especially in dry fly fishing.
Although many people think they're accurate until the real situation right up against the bank, under the limb, and into that little pocket with the rock in front of it. That challenges everybody. And when you think you're accurate, and then you realize you're not, you're like, I got work to do.
I work on accuracy in my tackle. I have rods that I believe are more accurate than others, and so on and so forth. And the way I set everything up is for accuracy, even down to my fly selection.
Okay. What makes a more accurate fly?
There you go. This is I have almost completely given up on flies that use stiff hackle.
Okay.
It's here I am in the Catskills. I can't remember the last time I fished a traditional Catskill dry fly. And yes, they do work, and they do work well in situations. But they were also predicated on relatively short, relatively stiff leaders. Initially, silkworm the fish were a lot dumber back then. There were probably a lot more of them. But today, when I want to fish that 20-foot 7X leader, to put even a size 16 or even an 18 traditionally hackled dry fly, and play all kinds of hell with that tippet.
No kidding.
It's going to twist. The wind's going to catch it. I use a lot of CDC flies, because CDC will it's not as wind resistant.
That's a good point.
In fact,
Great point.
The material itself folds back on the hook if the fly's tied properly.
When you and I first met, we had that first conversation. You told me your favorite fly and the one that you use. Can I tell everybody that?
Yeah, I guess they won't use it.
I don't know. Well, they won't, because it's too boring.
It's too simple.
It's the F fly, right? It's
F-fly.
A little bit of dubbing and a couple, usually just one,
CDC feathers.
one or two CDC feathers. That's it. There's no tail, right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's it.
No.
I will be honest, John. When you told me that, I'm like, I'm adding this F fly to my lineup, and I had CDC and elk and like a CDC Comparadon, which I still use a lot. And I tied up a series of those the F fly, and I fished them. But then as I lost them in trees and whatever, then I never replaced them. There's something that calls to each one of us about the flies that you're going to connect with, right? And you connected with that F fly for, I'm sure, really good reasons. For some reason, I didn't connect with it yet, but I'm sure that after this conversation, I'm going to have to get back on it.
Yeah, we're not talking about fly pattern here. We're talking about leaders. But
good job. Get us back on track.
Yeah, it is part of an integrated system.
Yeah. Well, you said it was more accurate.
It gives me a lot of accuracy, because that fly is like throwing a dart.
That's great. Yeah, it slices through the air instead of holding itself back.
Yeah, and I've gone as far to modify them, believe it or not, with a heavy hook.
Okay.
Which helps it turn over.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's how, you really go down rabbit holes with all this stuff.
Hey, real quick, I want to thank Trout Routes for sponsoring this video. Trout Routes is an angler's app. It's mapping software, and it's the best out there. Trout Routes also aggregates a bunch of data about public access, river conditions, and trout populations across the country. So it's not a spot burning app. It's not for sharing your location on social media. It's about helping you find your next great fishing spot. It's really a great app. So download Trout Routes in the App Store. You can use the code Troutbitten for 20% off your pro membership at maps.troutroutes.com. Hey, I should mention that you're the longtime rep for Hardy, right? The American, the American side over here, right?
Yeah, I retired 4 years ago, but I was associated with Hardy for about 20 years.
What I was gonna ask. And everybody, it's kind of a small industry, and everybody's connected. And when I talk to just about anybody, they go, "Oh yeah, I know Shaner." And I talked to Jake from Hardy, or I emailed with him earlier today, and he told me that you're full of jokes. He said if you get him going, he'll tell you some jokes. So maybe you slip one of those in, but it's got to be about a leader, because that's our topic.
Yeah. We'll see. Now you put me on the spot.
You have a great reputation, and
thank you.
You're well known, for your dry fly skills. And if you're fishing that upper Delaware system, they're going to challenge you, right? They're going to force you and everybody else who fishes there to do some extraordinary things.
Many years ago, when I was really just getting started in this, I found that I more than anything else, I loved sight fishing.
Sure.
And at that time, I grew up in central New York, about an hour and 40 minutes from where I live right now. But at that time, also, we had some wonderful little limestone streams, and some great little limestone-fed rivers, and a lot of the fishing I did was sight fishing, and I just found that is what I liked more than anything else. I liked rising fish, and even beyond that, I liked fish that I could see in the river. I could fish to visible fish, and that's what first got me to head out to Montana in the mid '80s, were the spring creeks, and you could go there and you just have wonderful sight fishing to just endless amounts of pretty good sized fish. But the Delaware system and the beaver kill, actually the beaver kill is part of the Delaware system if we want to be accurate.
Okay.
The whole Delaware system has really been my been my backyard and now my front yard, and I've fished it more than any other place, and it's a very challenging environment here. It's not a place where it's easy to pound up fish. And in a lot of cases, if you don't see the fish, you don't see fish rising. As I say, we've got relatively few fish and an awful lot of water. So you can spend a lot of time getting casting practice. Now that doesn't mean that you can't catch fish by methods where searching methods. Or maybe I'm just lazy. I don't know. But I've always been one that hunted rises. And then as I got to know where the fish were, certain times of the year, hunting the individual fish in the water. And even when I've been fortunate to have traveled a fair amount, not as much as I would have liked to or other people have, but I've been around the block, and that's what I chase. I'm not interested in going somewhere where I'm going to catch a lot of easy fish. I want to go somewhere where I'm going to have basically the same challenges. To me, I have this thing I call the one cast fish.
Go ahead.
And I challenge myself to try to find a fish and try to catch it with the first cast.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah.
And sometimes it takes a lot of preparation. I'm not a bow hunter, but I have friends who bow hunt, and I think it's analogous to that, where you have to take
one
your
shot.
time.
That's right.
It's one shot,
Yeah.
and I think it's a discipline as much. I'm not trying to brag or anything, because usually it doesn't happen. But if you think about it, if you set yourself up, if you look at every possibility before you make your first cast, that's going to give you the best shot at the fish. And
for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's as much a philosophy as it is anything else. But I see so many people, and I get a chance to watch a lot of people here.
Sure.
They hit the water running.
Yeah.
They
They're
plow
excited.
through a half a dozen fish.
Yeah.
And then start firing away at fish with 3 cast change flies. And we're going to bring this back to the leaders right now, because what happens is, the average leader sold today, it's just like the average rod is an 8.5 or 9'5" weight. Number one selling leader configuration is a 9-foot knotless tapered leader 5X.
Sure.
So what does that tell you? It tells you that everybody's fishing 9-foot knotless tapered leaders. Well, the guys, the anglers that know a little bit more, understand the use of tippet material and so forth, but I run into an awful lot of people, and for one reason or another, however it happens, you look at their rig and they've got about 7.5, maybe 8 feet of leader on there, and they've chewed it back to about 2X.
It's not going to happen, right? They're not going to catch one.
Not going to happen.
No.
And the other thing is, I gave up on personally, and this may be heretical or I don't know, maybe punishable by as a misdemeanor in 17 Western states or something, but I don't like knotless tapered leaders.
Oh yeah, me neither.
I simply don't like them.
No.
I cannot get them to work the way I want to.
Well, yeah, you can't get them to do what you want them to do.
Yeah.
And you sent me your leader formulas. You had given them to me before. Anyway, your leader formula, when we first started talking about this, it made me think of, this is like what I use is a George Harvey. And I know you're very familiar with Harvey's ideas. And he was a Central PA guy. And so I got really attached back in the 90s to this concept of what he called a slack leader. And I remember one of the guys in the fly shop, like the second fly shop that I kind of attached myself to, The guy said, why you tie those leaders? Just get one off the shelf. These are good. These are good. He's like, get this 7-foot 3X leader, and then you're going to tie 5X to it. Everything's fine. Good. Go fishing. And I thought, well, that does seem easier.
Yeah.
And I had fished the Harvey already, and I felt like I was getting used to, how the things that I was supposed to be doing. Like we're talking
that's
about
a leader that
delivering slack.
That has a learning curve.
Yeah, I agree. And do you think that your favorite leaders, if you handed them to somebody else, would take a learning curve?
Probably not like a Harvey leader.
No? Okay, cool. Tell me why.
And I'll give you a little anecdote here. I have a guide friend here on the river, and he's really a good guide. He's a super angler, and he knows he's been here for many years. And we were fishing together a couple of years ago, and he was watching me. He said, "Boy, you're putting that fly right where you want it." We got talking about leaders, and I gave him a couple. Mm-hmm. And next time I talked to him, he says, "I tried your leaders." He said, "I had a little problem with them at first." I said, "Really?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "The fly was landing about 3 feet past where I thought it would."
Okay.
They turn over so well. And, he's turning over an 18-plus foot leader, and he's looking 3 or 4 feet behind where that fly is.
Interesting.
Because that was his experience with the other leaders he'd been using.
So when I used your leader, which I tied up after we met and whatever, the main thing that I noticed, it's going to go back to the flies too, because some of them are going to be more air resistant. What I love about fishing a Harvey, and then I fish plenty of fly. I love a parachute. I love a clink hammer, and it's got the stiff hackle, and the parachute's going to kind of hold itself back. And I kind of use the leader and the fly to get what I call a lagging curve. And I know you're going to understand. I know you understand this. For other people out there listening and watching, a power curve. What I call a power curve is it turns over and keeps turning over, and it's going to curve that way, right? But a lagging curve, to me, I've even done videos on this on the Troutbitten YouTube channel. I'm not giving that. I'm kind of going sidearm, and I'm not giving that leader a chance to fully turn over, and then the fly lays down with a built-in curve. It's almost like pre-mending. Well, it's mending in the air, perhaps. It's not really an aerial mend. It's not a reach mend. It's just don't let it turn all the way over. And what you end up with is this, in my experience, a really beautiful curve that I'll lay that curve then into the current. I'll go backhand or forward or forehand, whichever way to line that lagging curve up. And the longer I guide and I talk about fishing all the time, the more I started realizing, man, I use that all the time. I probably 80% of the time with a cast, a dry fly cast, I'm using that lagging curve concept. And I build the leader so that I can get it to fully turn over, but it actually takes some work to get a power curve out of that. And I might have to, change the tippet sections of my Harvey to actually get that full power curve kind of turnover. But anyway, it sounds to me like you value that turnover in a different way than I do.
I want the turnover. Now, I'm not a distance guy. I'm a stalker.
Yeah, me neither. Sure.
I want to get, as I say, I want to get close enough to count the spots on the back of their head.
I like it. Yeah.
And you can do that. A lot of anglers don't realize how close you can get.
I agree with that too. Yeah.
And I think you can actually get closer to them now than you used to be able to because they see so many.
That's interesting. You and I talked about that a couple days ago. Yeah.
Yeah. But my concept on the leaders I'm using is that I want to be able to put a lot of distance between a lot of monofilament between the fly line and the fly, and I control my slack by the tippet length.
Okay.
I'm not a guy that's looking. In most cases, I was brought up on the concept of a long drag-free drift. Okay, everybody's looking for that. It's the holy grail.
I know. I was going to say, though, if you get past 10 or 15 feet, I'm like patting myself on the back, right? Depending on the water type.
That's the holy grail for almost everybody.
Yeah.
This is kind of a joke, but this is me just being kind of a wise guy.
Okay.
A lot of people will say, so what are you catching them on? And what I do is I hold my hands about 18 inches apart.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say, I'm catching them with that. And I'll say, what's that? I said, about that far in front of them and no farther than that to either side.
Mm-hmm. Accuracy and a clean drift.
I want I want the shortest. I don't want them to have a lot of time to look at it, and I don't want them to have, I don't want there to be a lot of chance for it to drag.
Man, that's great. I hear you.
It's a different concept.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work. Nothing always works.
Sure.
But it's worked enough for me in a lot of situations for a lot of years that is what I try to set up for. I try to set up for the shortest cast possible. Now, a lot of that is gonna be fish observation.
Mm-hmm.
How far is that fish moving from where you see him rise?
Mm-hmm.
The rise form is always behind the fish in moving water.
Right on. Yeah.
A lot of people forget that.
Mm-hmm.
The fish is always upstream of the fish. That could be a few inches. It could be a couple of yards.
Because they're not going. They're not swimming into the current to go get the fly. They're going to tilt up. The current pushes them back a touch or a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Exactly. And so once you determine where you think that fish will see that fly, that's your target. And then my usual, depending on where I am in relation to the fish. Now, this is another one that I like to be directly behind the fish and cast right over their heads.
No kidding. So you're going to put your leader over them on purpose, but not your fly.
That's another reason for the long leader.
Why not be off to the side, cantered off to the side?
You could be a little bit off to the side, okay. Absolutely. But again, now if you're directly behind the fish, nothing is perfect. Nothing is. If you're behind the fish, you have more of a chance to have all of your tackle, all of your terminal tackle in that drift line.
So you have a more chance then to get a drag-free drift.
Drag-free drift.
Gotcha.
And if you can determine where that fish is and you can drop the fly, again, that magic kind of 18 to 24 inches above him. The other thing about fishing straight upstream over a fish is in terms of striking into the fish, you've got the perfect angle.
Pulling in the hook into
scissors.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, you pull it into a scissors. He's going to eat it.
What'd you call it? Scissors?
Scissors, yeah. Yeah, that's I learned that from my English buddy. Yeah, corner of the mouth. Got him right in the scissors.
Oh, yeah, I gotcha. I like that.
Right in the scissors.
I want to use that. That was almost a joke, right, John? That was you almost told us a joke. This is great.
I owe Jake an email. I'm going to strangle him.
Yeah, this is great.
But so my leaders are predicated on approach and things like that, accuracy, ability to put slack into the leader the way I want to, and one of the things that I think frightens a lot of anglers away from using longer leaders. And I'll give you a little bit of background on this.
Can I interrupt you and ask you how long your leader is?
I kind of measure my leader a lot against my rod. Right now I'm fishing an 8-foot 8-inch 4-weight is my go-to rod. So 8-foot 8-inch. I've got an 8-foot 9-inch. I got a 9-foot. All 4 weights depending. I'll fish the 9-foot if I'm floating. I'll fish the 8-8 most of the time wading. 8-9 is kind of an intermediate. And they vary in stiffness. The 8-8 is probably the softest.
Okay.
So that's kind of a more delicate rod. And the reason I use a 4-weight, you could do it with a 5-weight, you could do it with a 3-weight. I just use I use the same lines on everything, so I'm not confusing stuff.
Oh, same. I like to keep things simple and in a routine.
Yeah. Makes it easier for travel and all that kind of stuff rather than have a bunch of indeterminate, or rods. But
so how do you gauge that leader against the rod?
The length. Yeah. Interesting. I found out something interesting. I should have known this. I've never been a competitor. I've never been a competing angler. Yeah. But I believe that the Phipps-Moosh regulations say that the leader can be no longer than double the length of the rod.
Twice the length of the rod, yeah.
So that's why a lot of these guys are using longer rods to get the longest leader possible.
Sure.
It's never going to. I'm never going to measure it so it's exactly 18 feet or exactly 21 feet or whatever. I'm going to be out there modifying it. But generally, as my rod is right now, it's about my leader on the rod right now. I can tell you it's about 19 feet.
No kidding. So then my follow up to that is if you're getting pretty close to the trout and the leader is 18, 19 feet, how much fly line do you have out of the guides?
Not any more than I need to.
I love that answer too.
You
want some though, or are you just casting leaders sometimes?
Well, the leaders I use turn over pretty well at short distances.
I know what you mean. With a good cast.
That's and on the flip flop though. When I was in England this year on the chalk streams, we had the beginning of the mayfly was coming up.
Okay.
And that's a big fly. I mean, that's a solid 12. And a bushy fly, and I had brought heavier tackle, in anticipation of that. But the first day I was out on one of the bigger rivers, I already had my 884 set up, and I said, "What the heck?" And all I did was change the tippet. I changed it to slightly shorter 5X, and I was picking fish off 60 feet across the river with it. And landing the fly where I wanted to without modifying the rest of the leader at all.
Oh, I hear you. Your changes are, this is a hand-tied leader, and your changes are, is it always just in the last tippet section or maybe the last couple?
It's mostly the last tippet section, occasionally the last two tippet sections. Full confession here, in the last few years, I've gone to using tiny tippet rings.
Oh, no kidding. I don't like them. I use them in nymphing leaders. I don't like, and I get 1.5 millimeter. That's about as small as you could find, right?
Yeah, it's about as small as you can find.
You put them right before the last section?
I do them at 5X.
No kidding.
So my last section's 5X, or my last section that is 5X, and then you can go 5, 6, or 7.
You know what? With the Troutbitten guys, we just call that knuckle dragging. You're just slumming down. I'm just kidding you.
I'm an old guy. I can't see anymore.
I'm just kidding you.
It's really easy to change tippets.
That does surprise me. I have no good reason for it. I don't think that 1.5 millimeter little piece of metal actually, makes a difference. There's no hinge. That's for sure. It doesn't make a difference, but it gets in my head. Put a little
bit of floating on it.
Sure you could. Yeah.
But if you don't like that, I don't know if you've ever looped tippets. I used to loop tippets a lot.
Yeah, little mini perfection loops, little tiny ones, right?
Yeah, just a surgeon's loop even, or a spider loop.
Right on.
And those work really well.
Interesting.
And they're easy to change.
Yeah, it's not that I don't like it. But I just found it interesting. But that's where you make your changes then.
Well, one of the things about that, too, is also,
okay,
if I know where that ends, and whether it's with a tippet ring or a loop, I know how long the rest of the leader is. I know how much 5X is on there. I'm not chopping and cutting, and I know what I need to do in order to lengthen that leader. And this is when I used to be a shop geek years ago, and people would come in, they'd buy a stack of 9-foot 5X leaders.
Yeah.
I can remember guys buying like 2 dozen at a time. And I thought I was doing people a favor by telling them about tippet material and stuff. And one of the guys I was working for at one point says, "We make a lot of money on those leaders. Don't scare them away from those." And, but what I would do is I would show people, look, if you're really cheap, just cut about 18 inches of the leader off and tie it back on, so you have a reference point of how long your leader is. And this is where I think people get kind of messed up if they're changing tippet materials,
and they don't know, like you say, there's no reference point. I gotcha.
There's no reference point. If you know that reference point is 5X, you can tie certainly 6X to it, and you can actually tie 7X to it as well. But if you get farther up that, now you don't know if it's 2, 3, 4, or whatever. You tie on a lighter tippet, you're going to have some turnover problems.
So you brought up a couple times the extruded leaders, the 9-foot 5X leader or 3X, 4X, whatever. But the extruded, do you think you could get the same performance? Do you think if a company would actually make them like this to try to mimic these hand-tied leaders that you like and I like, do you think they could be extruded that way? Is there?
I think it has to do with the properties of the various materials
I do too.
that I would incorporate into a leader.
Yeah.
And if I can use brand names, I will.
Sure.
I I'm a Maxima fan,
Same.
Maxima Chameleon
Yeah.
Brown. I started my career, if you will, using hand-tied Maxima leaders. Maxima was one of the very first commercially available monofilament fishing lines. It's a German product, and as well as I can determine, it's really unchanged. And
in my lifetime too.
A lot of the early leader formulas that I based a lot of my leaders on were using Maxima.
Same.
One of the great properties of Maxima is that you can pull it and hold it and it will straighten.
Yes, agreed.
And I have not been able to find that in.
I know.
And probably someone will say, no, I've got a material or I use a brand that will do this. I've never found one personally. Maybe I'm just not looking that hard anymore. That I can just pull and straighten and have it stay straight all day.
It stays straight, even in colder weather.
Exactly.
Until you put it back on the reel. But even then, it takes a while for it to be on the reel, for it to develop a coil or whatever you want to call it again. Yeah. It's a powerful material. It's stiffer,
it's very powerful,
so it turns over, and yet it'll lay flat if you pull it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is something we talked about this outside of our recording. Is that a lot of my leaders have gone now to much smaller butt diameters than was customary.
And that's you can't find that in any extruded leader.
You're 25 thousandths, 21 thousandths.
Yeah.
But I'm using like 17 and 15 thousandths.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm going to do some experimenting with 13 thousandths for some lighter rods. And I know they'll work. And what's very interesting, a lot of the older original tapers that I kind of stumbled across that were published in the 50s, they were mimicking gut leaders where they were using 15 thousandths butt sections.
Now that's really interesting.
Yeah. So there's some continuity there. Very different. I mean, they had leader formulas. Now, of course, back then they're dealing with, maybe 18 inches of, material, and they had to have knots after knots after knots in order to make a 9-foot or 12-foot leader. Ed Hewitt was fishing 18 and 20-foot gut leaders in the 1920s.
With a bunch of sections tied together to get that long.
With a bunch of sections. Okay. Think of that, maybe a dozen sections. And I fully believe that and others do as well, that the knots actually help with the turnover.
Oh, yeah. I've talked to wet fly guys that are very into exactly what the knots do in the leader and how they're tied.
Yeah. A lot of people are afraid of knotted leaders because they think that they will pick up weed.
Yeah, they might.
And any leader will pick up weed.
Sure.
I would rather hook the fish and worry about the weed later.
I know. If it's about presentation, that's the first thing.
Yeah, it comes down to
presentation. Nothing matters more. Nothing matters more.
Another thing that I think anglers shy away from with long leaders is the line to leader connection.
Okay. What's your preference?
When I started fishing, I was taught to use a nail knot. And at that time, also the needle knot. And I came back to, I tried other things. When loop to loop came out, it originally came out to use with the early braided leaders. And I thought, I'm a gear guy. I thought, this is great. There's more stuff I can buy and little tweaky things I can toy around with. But I very, very quickly found out that if you use a leader much longer than the rod, that's going to jam in the guides.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's clunky.
So I went back to my Maxima leaders and my needle nail knot, which is barely larger than the diameter of the fly line.
I know that can get super clean if you're good at it.
And they're not hard to do with a little practice. A nail knot is nearly as good. They're at least as secure, and they don't sink the end of your fly line. They don't sink the tip of your fly line. I just don't know why any serious angler, I got to be careful where I go.
I know what you mean. You got to be careful. Everybody's going to get mad at you, John.
I don't want to offend anybody.
See, you're going to make enemies.
I've talked to friends. It's like, don't tell people about that. They'll be using long leaders,
and then they'll catch more fish than you.
Catching more fish than we can catch.
But you're not a loop-to-loop fan.
I think that's one of the things that really keeps anglers from trying longer leaders.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I in my younger years, I did a lot of fly fishing classes, and we always started out with the basic knots, and one of those was at least a nail knot. And I'm surprised how many anglers I run into today can't tie nail knots.
Oh, they've never tied one. I know,
and have never had to tie one. And to me, it's just part of our craft.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of being a fully developed angler is knowing those knots.
Well, one of my pet peeves about this industry, I guess, if you call it that, is seems to be a preference to make things easier for people.
Mm-hmm.
I dare say dumb it down a little bit,
Yeah.
Here you can just do this loop to loop. It'll be easy for you. There you go. This makes sense to everybody. Everybody can do this handshake loop and, And honestly, I think the extruded leaders kind of lean that way. Like, make it easier for the angler.
They always have, yeah.
And that's fair. I get it. You got to bring beginners in because this can be a complicated sport.
Mm-hmm.
It is. And we're talking about 5, 6, 7 sections in a hand-tied leader, and I know many people are, they shy away from that because they're not even necessarily comfortable with a blood knot. But anyway, you get there, right? But it isn't as easy as just pulling the extruded leader off of the fly shop shelf and fishing it with a loop-to-loop.
I think, as fish get harder to catch, and I say fish, not just trout. I mean, we have a lot more anglers on the water now.
Mm-hmm.
Fish get fished over a lot more. It's the attention to detail that's going to lead to success.
Yeah.
And again, I watch in front of my place here. Probably one of the hardest fish pools, in the East. Mm-hmm. And I will watch there. I'll sit there on my bench for an hour and not watch one guy stick a fish. And I shouldn't, one angler stick a fish. But I'm also watching the leaders come down in a pile.
Yeah.
I'm watching 3 casts change flies. People not putting themselves into proper position and so forth. Fly pattern is really cool. Everybody, thinks fly pattern is where it's at.
Yeah.
And it's not. I mean, the fly shops will lead you down that path because, flies are $3 a piece
exactly.
now. And anglers become convinced they're not catching trout in almost any situation because of the right fly.
Must be the fly.
And I've almost made a personal career out of catching fish with the wrong fly.
Mm-hmm. With your F fly, just
with my F fly, or a bunch of years ago, we were talking earlier about fishing a particular style. I probably caught 70% of my fish one season, beginning with a Hendrickson's on a black beetle. I just fished a black beetle all year. If I saw a fish come up, I'd put a beetle on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually stopped using beetles, not stopped totally, but really cut back on beetles because fish tend to take them so deep.
Interesting. I fish an ant a lot, but my ant has some hackle. Yeah, I fish a parachute ant. Maybe that prevents the fly from going down in so much.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point because I always used really soft legs on my beetles. The spinners are the same thing, flat wing spinners.
Fair.
And especially in the evening, fish will take them, way deep
with a lot of confidence.
That's how you can tell if you're really onto a fly.
That's a good point.
With a lot of confidence, how deep they take
and
it.
that your drift is high quality.
Yeah. Drift. That's an interesting point. And Don Staziker, who co-authored a book with Peter Hayes, this was published earlier this year, an English book called "The Flies That Fish Prefer," or "Flies That Trout Prefer."
Okay.
Well worth looking into. It is a Marinero-ish type of book. It is, but with modern photography and QR codes to link to videos and so forth. and a great book. And I've had the
we'll leave a link to that in the show notes.
I've had the honor of fishing with Don here and in England, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. And the first question he asked me when I met him over here last year, I don't know how it came about. He says, "Tell me, does your leader float or sink?" And I said, "Well, it floats." He goes, "You know what you're talking about."
Okay.
And this was going somewhere. He's convinced, and as am I, that a floating leader the fish don't care about because they just don't notice it.
I agree.
And if your leader floats, who would fish with a sinking tip fly line? Who would fish dry flies with a sinking tip dry fly? And essentially, that's what you're doing with a sinking leader. Mm-hmm. But the other part of this conversation continued, and they have some great shots of the fly coming right into the fish's mouth and then being pulled out by the leader at the last split second from drag.
Oh, sure.
And so you get thinking, and it's like, how many times have the fish just missed it, or
he rejected it? Yeah.
Well, at that point, they can't even see the fly. They've committed. And the drag is actually holding that fly out of their mouth. So when they close their mouth, the fly simply isn't there.
Sure. Or maybe you foul hook them on the side.
So again, being the kind of guy that's got way too many musty old fishing books, reading Ed Hewitt, Telling on the Trout, 1926.
No kidding.
He's talking about that phenomena. And that he believed that the tippet could actually hold the fly out of the fish's mouth.
I love it. It's just another example of fishermen on down the line through the decades and centuries, I'm sure. I've gone through this where I thought I really discovered something. Whether it was, a small stream that it feels like it's mine, or even kind of a secret spot, or perhaps you think it's an unknown spot on even a popular river. Or it's a tactic. You're like, man, I'm doing something nobody else has done, maybe. I used to think that in my 20s and maybe even my early 30s. And then, like you say, the more you read and the deeper you read and the more people you talk to and you meet on the stream, you go, oh, man, I didn't figure anything out. Well, you might have figured it out, but you weren't the first to figure it out.
Exactly.
You're not doing anything. It's like putting chords together with these guitars behind me, right? Like I can do nothing different. Nothing unique. It's all been done.
Someone said that every generation thinks it invented sex.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
It's and you can apply that to trout fishing because I'm a little bit of an amateur historian, and I can find an antecedent to almost everything we do as long as we take modern materials out of it. I can find where somebody has probably done something
the concepts
like what we're doing.
Because it does just come back to being fishing, and it does get complicated, like especially like you say with modern materials and whatnot. You can kind of complicate older ideas, established ideas, and I'm not saying complicate like it's a bad thing. It doesn't always result in negative. But anyway, there's not much unique. Hey, you were talking about the leader floating, and I wanted to ask you, do you ever paste your leader or grease your leader so that it floats?
I absolutely do.
Yeah, I do too. I have a lot of people, when I'm guiding, I'll start, I grease up the fly, and then I'll take that extra, and I put it, what I do is like maybe a foot back, right? And then I'll grease the rest of the leader. And I've had guys say, oh, you don't want them to see the leader. I'm like, I do it for pickup, so I can easily pick up the line on a leader, on the water without it, kind of, and splashing on the pickup. Why do you grease it?
Well, the way I came about this is some of the early braided leaders that Orvis sold in the early 80s that's really great stuff. It didn't last many years, but if you didn't grease them, they would throw off water when you picked up. And I was fishing, like I said, I was fishing the Western Spring Creeks a lot. And you didn't want to shower the fish with your pickup. And I used a product called Cortland Dab. You might remember it. Came in a little orange plastic.
You say Dab? D-A-B?
Dab, D-A-B. It was a pure silicone. It was It was sticky and thick, and you just ran that down the leader, and it would, you'd only have to replenish it once or twice a day. And I would put that from about the last couple of inches of fly line and then down the leader. And when I went back to knotted leaders, I just simply did the same thing. Now I use what's the Japanese product, Superfloat.
I don't know.
Comes in the little gel, any of the gels, any of the thick gels.
I use Payette paste or Payette, whichever they call it.
You want to put that on dry, though, if you can.
Good
the
point.
thing about dab is you could put it on wet. Because,
that's interesting. That's a great detail point.
Detail point.
I like that.
A lot of people don't realize that monofilament will absorb up to 10% its weight in water.
Yeah. After how long?
After a couple hours.
Yeah.
So years ago, I worked for Cortland Line, and one of our main complaints was that I bought this new line, and it was great in the morning, and by afternoon the tip was sinking. And they were blaming the line. Well, what it was their leader was
dragging it down. That's very interesting.
And it was starting to pull it down. And now you add let's say a loop-to-loop connection and things like that. Yeah, you're going to get leader sink. And, people would speculating that they would say things like, well, the core of the fly line is going to pull the water into it. That's going to sink the fly line. Well, we did tests with strong dyes. And if it's a good quality line, there's a sealant on the core that's going to preclude the water. They're waterproof.
Yeah, I've never believed that much either. Yeah.
I say that.
They say it wicks up into it.
I say that to dispel a myth.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of myths in our industry,
lot
right?
Of myths. Yeah,
there really are.
There really is. But yeah, absolutely. And it all depends. If I'm going to be making a lot of casts, I'm going to probably renew that float several times during the day. If I'm stalking, I may get lazy and not even put it on because my butt is, my leader butt's going to be dry anyway. And I will say also that as you get down towards the tippet of the fly line, not so much on dry flies. I used to do it with dry flies. I really don't anymore. But I like to sight fish pheasant tail nymphs without an indicator.
Oh, interesting.
That is my very, very favorite thing to do in the world.
So they're like inches below the surface?
Inches where you could see the fish, as would say, on the fin, where you can see them eating. So now, basically, it's dry fly fishing in 3 dimensions.
Yeah, that's neat. That's a good way to put it.
So you've got to calculate, sink rates and things like that. I will use a sinking material called mud, which I make myself. You can buy. I think Orvis sells it.
You make that with Fuller's Earth.
Fuller's Earth.
I know, bud.
Oh, man, I can't get anything past you.
I talk to guys like you, and I learn stuff.
Fuller's Earth, Dawn dishwashing liquid, and a few drops of glycerin.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, I got it in my vest.
And
not many of us do.
You can control the sink rate on a pheasant tail nymph with that.
That's pretty neat.
But what's really funny is fishing the chalk streams. They believe in this stuff. I mean, they sell it by the barrel full in the shops over there. And the joke is, in the pubs at night, you can tell the anglers because they've got this mud up under their fingernails.
Yeah.
And I don't go quite that far, but one of the gillies I was fishing with this year, it's you got to have your mud mate, and grease the tippet and degrease the tippet, which I did to humor him and directly hooked a fish I hadn't been able to hook. So
I love it.
He got the last laugh on me.
Hey, do you use the same leader for that? You still using your dry fly leader?
I did. Yeah, I did. I got really lazy. I had tied some stiffer stuff up, but I had just and I use the same leader for my pheasant tails as well.
That's right. Yeah.
I do have that nymph leader in there. That I showed you I think that's maybe I didn't send you that one. I do have a nymph leader that I occasionally use for like heavy nymph westers.
I'll tell you what, with your permission, I'd like to put your leader formula. I'll put it up here so people can see it.
Cat's out of the bag. So, I'm an old guy.
Yeah.
Think kindly of me if you catch a fish.
I will also post that Harvey leader formula, and people can see kind of the differences.
Yeah.
The difference. I don't know if I have the terms right, but I've heard people describe the difference of a progressive leader versus a compound. Well, a progressive taper, rather. That's in the leader versus a compound taper. As I are these terms you use?
No, not really. Just so you know, I've invented nothing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying too. Me neither.
Those leaders are all based on other formulas, but they're just the way that I've tweaked them over the years.
Yeah.
And when I first put that spreadsheet together, probably 20 years ago, compared to what my butt sections now, you can almost move all of those line weights down a little bit. Where I said,
little thin.
I think on one of them I called it a light 4-weight. Well, that would be closer to my standard 4-weight.
Interesting.
Today. And the reason for that, the reason I've gone with these lighter, longer butt sections, the butt sections have gotten longer, is that it's energy transfer from the fly line. Okay. So what happens is, and I can remember way back, and when really getting into this stuff about 40 years ago, and someone says, "Oh, you got to get hard mason because it really turns over."
I never fished mason. Do they still make it?
I hope not.
Okay, I remember that being in some leader formulas.
Could get that stuff straight. I mean, you had to warm it up to straight. You could almost poke people with it. I mean, it was so stiff. The problem is a lot of saltwater guys at that time.
Okay.
I think we used it for bonefish at that time. But we were going in the wrong direction.
Okay.
And again, I've fished 4 weights primarily from my trout fishing my entire career, because that's the type of trout fishing I do. I certainly could have fished a 5-weight just as well. Don't need to really, nobody needs to go out and buy a new rod or anything. But what we thought was the stiffness is what was going to carry it out, and that's not what does it. It's energy transfer. So if you look at a relatively supple fly line tip, you want to match that diameter of that leader butt so it makes the same curve. You'll know if the leader butt is too stiff because if you hold them and bend them, they won't bend at the same rate. So what you want with a leader, the way you get a leader to turn over, is as you cast, that energy is diminishing the whole time. Once you've stopped your forward cast on a cast, your fly line is losing energy. It's dropping and it's losing energy. That's why a fly line is tapered.
Sure, understood.
Okay, it's losing energy. So you're relying on that energy that you put into it as it dissipates to keep turning over lighter and lighter and lighter line.
Interesting.
And so when that line hits that leader butt, we don't want it to, run into a wall.
Right.
We don't want it to all at once have to turn over, to bend something that's too stiff.
Yeah.
So you get something that's a little bit less resistance to bending than the fly line tip, and that fly line will carry that energy into that long leader. So I'm using 40 and 48 inch butts, 15 thousandths butts now.
Understood.
On a lot of leaders, and you can turn that over, and then a relatively long, like a 2 feet of 13 thousandths. So now you've got you've got 4, you've got 6, 6 or 7 feet. You got half your leader right there in just the butt in the first couple of transition sections. And my transition sections have become longer too. I used to you'll see in some of those older formulas.
Sure.
You don't need that. And the other thing I've learned is that especially in the maxima, you can jump a little bit down. You don't have to go by thousandths.
I remember that was always the rule. You'd hear you can't go more than from 12 to 10 pound or whichever.
It makes a difference when you get down to tippets.
I agree with that too.
Okay, it makes a difference when you don't want to go 3x to 6x.
I know, right?
Then you're going to have problems. But 5X will carry 7X quite easily.
Okay.
Believe it or
And
not.
up in your transition, your tapers
Yeah.
of the leader. Yeah.
Yeah, I've tried to make a lot of things simpler on myself, and that's why, like I say, I seldom use tippets heavier than 5X. If I know where my 5X is, I can add 5, 6, or 7X to that. That's what I use the most of.
Well, you were talking about. Sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt you.
I was going to say the local shop here said they sold as much 7X this year as they had in the previous 5 years.
That's because you're telling everybody to go out and buy it.
No, I'm not telling anybody nothing.
I'm just kidding.
This is all you're getting.
That's the way it goes. I mean, everybody's even nymphing with 7 and 8X and stuff, you know.
Yeah, but I didn't mean to. But go ahead.
I was going to bring up what you were talking about there, basically matching the flexibility of the butt section to the flexibility of the end of that fly line, instead of what I read earlier. Well, the first thing I was introduced to, and I started fly fishing maybe 1990, 91. The first thing I ran into was people said, "Oh, you got to match the diameter of the end of the fly line with now this diameter of your leader." And really, most of the extruded leaders in the fly shop are still doing that. And we're saying, especially for a dry fly leader, but really for all of my leaders, it's better to match the flexibility. It just makes more sense. The way you described it, like running into a wall the other way, that's a great way to put it.
And that's what I see. And again, I maybe am guilty of spending too much time watching other fishermen. But I'll watch these guys, make these, casts trying to get across the river. The line goes out pretty well, and then you just see the leader come down in like a curly cue, like it just dumps into a pile, because as that line was turning over, it hits that heavy butt, and that's as far as that leader's going to go.
Yeah, you're stopping it from doing its job. What it's supposed to do. Yeah.
You can learn a lot. I don't mean to, sound creepy or anything, but you can learn a lot by watching other anglers.
With your binoculars. You have your binoculars for sight fishing, right?
Binoculars I've got a pair of compact binoculars I've carried forever.
I bet you do. And
you can tell, you can learn a lot with a pair of binoculars.
Yeah. Learn what not to do by watching other anglers.
Yeah, I got some stories there, but I can't tell those.
If you want to tell one, you go ahead.
But it's trying to be helpful here. I'm trying to be,
Sure.
You can watch other anglers and you know what they're doing wrong.
Yeah.
And that you could go out and correct them very easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, I just think that people get so wrapped around the axle with fly pattern. They think fly pattern attracts fish, and it really doesn't. We're not trying to attract them. Maybe with a streamer or a wet fly. We're trying to get them to make a mistake.
I like that.
If you think about that, we're just trying to get them to make a mistake. And they're not, they're generally not going to swim over because you've got the right pattern. And I think in a lot of cases, and I know this is true in my own fishing, I think what happens in a lot of cases with fly changes is during the time they're, an angler's changing the fly, maybe they lengthen or shorten the tippet. Maybe the sun goes down a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe the fish changes position. That fly goes to the right place for the first time. Can be a completely different fly than they started with. The fish eats it, and damn it, they knew that's what those fish wanted.
Right.
As if those fish got up that day and said they wanted a parachute PMD cripple or some baloney like that. No, that's not how fish work.
Oh, I'm with you.
Something is there, for them to eat, and they're going to eat it. If it doesn't look like food or it's not where it needs to be, especially the more regularly a fish is rising. Number one, generally the easier they are to catch.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can time it into them.
Sure.
Force feed them.
Yeah. You got to have more information. Every time they rise, you got a little bit more information. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think what happens, again, if you're not making the right cast, if it has drag or whatever, you become convinced that it's the wrong fly when it's really just not timed in there right, or it's too far right or too far left, or there's too much drag. Because again, that's where I've caught so many fish on the wrong fly, but with the right drift over the years. And it's actually very liberating to
Yeah.
I think, to pare down your fly box.
I agree too.
I mean, I've got boxes full of flies. Good God, I got
Same.
lots of patterns, and I love flies, and I love to tie flies, and I like a good looking fly. But I get out there and I reach for the same stuff. Because I have confidence in it, and the very best fly is the one you have confidence in.
Well, liberating is a good word, and then you realize that it's up to you and not the fly, and then you know that. Well, again, it's up to you. You've done the right, and when you do catch them, then you've done the right thing. Not like, oh God, I got that magic fly. It's not luck.
If I cover a fish, and I think I've covered the fish properly or well, and he doesn't eat, I start trying to analyze what I did wrong.
Sure.
Not the external factors. The factors I have control over. What do I have control over that I can change on the next cast? Is it waiting for the wind to subside a little bit? Is it waiting for the clouds to pass or not pass? Is it shifting myself a foot or two right or left to get a better drift? Is it lengthening or shortening the tippet to get the right drift? I look at all the things that I have control over.
I love that.
And not the things I don't have control over.
You just brought up the environmental factors of sun and wind. Gosh, I don't know that I think about it that much. Now I know I don't like really fishing in certain I don't like bright days. You and I talked how you don't mind the sun too much.
Oh, I'd rather fish a sunny day than anything.
That's odd to me. But anyway, I'm saying that what you just talked about there, the things that you could change, or actually just, you're more patient, I'd say, than I am. Me, I'm like, okay, I'm going to adjust my cast. There's my next cast. Okay, now I'll move. Like you said, I'll come over here. I'll make sure that he's going to see it for a little bit longer, or maybe a little bit less. Put it on his right side instead of his left. I'll take time and do stuff like that. But I don't know if I've ever been like, okay, I'm going to wait for those clouds to cover up the sun.
I will wait.
I like that.
For the right angle of sun for God knows how long.
I love that.
Especially on fish that are like tight to a bank or near structure or whatever. I was talking with a friend of mine today, had a pretty good day on the East Branch, and we're talking about presenting the fly to the right or the left of the fish. Some fish are right or left eye dominant.
Yeah. I believe
sunlight,
that.
angle of sunlight, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
Maybe it makes sense on the approach to cast from one side.
Yeah.
But the fish has got has got the sun in his eye, and one of the very best fish I ever caught on the West Branch. Not the largest, but the one fish that I'll remember. I'll go to my last day remembering this fish. Was in about 18 inches of water one bright sunny July morning, and on a big flat, and I was fishing pheasant tails, and the easy cast was to pitch it on his left side because I didn't have to cross over him.
Okay.
And I put about 3 or 4 casts where I knew they were absolutely right, and I had no response for the fish. And then it's like I smacked myself in the head. The sun was relatively low because it was in the morning. It was about 10:30, and the fish had the sun in his eye. I put it on the other side of him. The first cast he got a little twitchy. The second cast he swam over and ate it.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
And now, can I prove that? No, absolutely not.
I know what you mean. That's the beauty of it. You can never be completely sure why you caught him.
But the response the fish made to good casts on one side, and then taking the chance to cross, where I knew that leader was going to eventually come over him. I had to put a little bit over him.
I gotcha. Yeah.
And he ate it. It was, I can still picture that in my mind. It's but those are the little things that I think we slow down and think about, which is just like leaders. People don't slow down and think about leaders.
Well, and again, I think that's where it starts. And we said, presentation more than anything.
Yeah.
Presentation first, and then you can correct and adjust other things. None of it means much without good control over that presentation, so that you can make the adjustments that you just talked about. And that goes back to the accuracy. We said you were accurate enough in that circumstance to be saying, okay, I'm going to put it on the left of him. Put it on the left. Okay, that didn't work. Let me put it on the right of him. Well, you got to be pretty darn accurate to be able to handle the leader to do that. especially
Yeah,
a longer
yeah,
leader.
and that's all your, that's getting all your tackle to work for you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I spend a lot of time doing that. I spend a lot I call it an integrated outfit or a tuned outfit. And it's the way I set up everything, right from basically from the backing knot to the reel arbor all the way down to the fly.
Yeah,
There's a reason I do everything,
sure.
and it's all predicated on experience. It's all predicated on. There are other ways to do it, but these are the things, and I've done it other ways. But these are the things that I've ultimately settled on as to me making the most sense and giving me the least amount of trouble.
I love it.
And when I'm out there, I don't want to be fooling around with stuff any more than I have to. I want my focus to be on the fish and the cast. I kind of go into almost the tunnel vision when I'm on a fish. It's amazing how much I can exclude the rest of the world.
It's a great feeling.
Yeah, and
You just zoned,
I just
zoned in.
kind of know. Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, that's what comes back to the concept of the one cast fish.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, it sounds a little bit like I'm full of myself, but if you think about focusing on something like that, you see guys like making ranging shots. They're like. The old battleships before radar, they had to like start short and keep keep shooting farther out.
Okay.
So, they finally hit the other ship.
Okay.
I see that happening. Well, I'm
Bad
just going to throw a
strategy
lot
for fly fishing, you're saying.
I'm going to make a lot of casts around this fish.
Yeah.
Well, every cast you're making is, maybe putting that fish off.
Sure.
And it's like showing fish a dragging fly. I'm not a big one for a downstream cast.
Yeah, me
I will
neither.
make them, and I've caught many fish on downstream cast. The downstream cast has become like I've gotten into arguments on the river with people yelling at me.
It's popular up your way, the downstream stuff.
It sure is.
Yeah.
And the problem is with the downstream cast, you can't clean off an untaken fly easy.
Say again?
And by clean off, I mean pick up.
Okay, yeah.
So the fish, you fire the cast in there. You're stripping like crazy to try to get as much long adrift as you can, and it goes by the fish. It's by the fish. And if you're kind of in his lane, there's no way you can really pick that up unless you push the rod way out to the side.
Sure.
And
you can wait for it to swing out, and get away from
Most
them.
people just pick it right up over the fish's head.
Yeah.
And it's a very ineffective way to fish, I believe.
Me too.
And again, I won't say I don't do it, because I do it. If that's going to be the presentation it takes, I will do that. But I've pulled the fly out of too damn many fish's mouths to
that too. And when you do hook a big one and you were fishing downstream, boy, are you in a rough spot to land that fish. It's a bad start to a fight.
Always want to fish upstream on a short line, and
love it.
And I try to fish as close to the fish as I can, and a big part of that is keeping the fish under control.
Yeah.
If you the closer you can keep a fish, once you've hooked him, the more control you're going to have, and the better chance you have of landing him. Yes, you will occasionally get a fish that's going to take some line. We all kind of love that thrill. But you hook a fish upstream, and if you keep the leader right up over his back, you'll just stay tight to him. He's just like a dog on a leash, and let him wear himself out.
Everything's in your favor. River's working for you, not against you.
Absolutely, he's fighting and you're pulling the hook into his mouth again.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that read fly fishing history, they talk about the English and they would only fish upstream dry flies and this and that. There was a damn good reason for it. There was a damn good reason for that.
Stealth, right?
Stealth.
And all the other stuff you just mentioned,
And all the other stuff. And remember, they're fishing for relatively large trout on, leaders that are testing a pound.
Weak tippet, leaders.
In weedy water.
Yeah.
With 10-foot bamboo rods. My God, there's not 1 in 10 fishermen I know that could handle that tackle.
That's a good point.
And it took a high degree of skill. but they knew instinctively that you approach the fish from the blind side.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not getting down on downstream fishing. That's not my point. I think my point is again, you can get very accurate on the downstream cast,
Mm-hmm.
but think about it. You can downstream cast and get right into his mouth.
Mm.
But why wouldn't you think it's just about turning that whole thing around
I know.
and casting upstream over his mouth?
That's my standard approach as well, and it has been from the beginning. I'm glad I was taught that way, and it just makes sense. Even if I was just like you're saying, there's plenty of times, 10%, maybe 5% of the time, I'm like, well, the best approach is to cast downstream in this case. That's fine. That works.
Yep. Good angler's going to be comfortable with a lot of different approaches.
And you should be.
And you should be. And I mentioned another little thing there about what I call cleaning up the cast or cleaning off.
I like that.
It's very tempting to believe that the fly has gone past the fish and just lift it right up.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to let the fly float and float and float and float past the fish, usually downstream of me before I pick it up.
No kidding. Even if it's dragging.
I don't care if it's dragging. If it goes by the fish and I'm pretty sure it's by where he last would have taken it, I'm going to let it go way by him. Now, I was surprised by a really good fish this summer.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the fly was way past the fish, and it wasn't. He ate it right about where I was going to pick it up, about 4 feet where I normally would have picked it or would have thought to pick it up. And it was the fish. I saw him eat the fly. And the other thing is, you don't want to make any more disturbance than you have to.
Sure.
No matter how confident you are in a fly, the worst thing you can do is show it to the fish unnaturally, dragging, splashing, whatever.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. So,
well, I'll tell you what, John, this is fantastic. We're going to have you back. You're our first guest for this In Deep series.
Oh,
I was thinking about you for a while. Well, we're going to do more of these interviews because this is exactly what I was hoping for. I knew we would have a good conversation, but we covered a lot of good stuff here. I love it.
Well, I won't say I have any answers, but if I can just help people think and analyze, and so much of what I try to do is to analyze.
Sure.
And again, analyze why I'm catching them, but why I'm not.
Well, and both, and one leads you to the other. Why am I not catching them? Let me correct this, adjust that. Now I can catch them. Yeah, that's the game. That's the big part of the game that I know we all love. Also, like you said, you're just sinking into that, being in the zone. Not even thinking about anything else. That's what I'm looking for all the time. When I played guitar, that was what I loved so much too. There's many, let's say, artistic kind of things. Yeah, you can do it when you're writing, maybe when you're cooking. Things like that in life are just healthy for us too. Just to kind of sink so deeply into something.
Yeah, that just you can almost picture yourself as an early human, and you have to make that spear shot to feed your family. Everything's focused on that.
Yeah.
Now, we're not feeding our family with these trout, but it's the same thing. I mean, we're still hardwired to do that.
That's great.
And that's it may be an atavism, but I think it's one that I think it's one of the reasons we go fishing is to get into that mode.
Yeah.
Where it's us and I hate to say it, but it's us and the prey.
Yeah. For sure.
But the fun part about fly fishing for trout is we can let them go and prey on them again.
Yeah, and you didn't hurt them much. I love it. Thanks, my friend. Come back.
Well, thank you, Dominic.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay. I'll see you, John. So remember, the In Deep series is part of the Troutbitten project. Established in 2014, Troutbitten is a free resource for all anglers. The Troutbitten website hosts over 1,500 articles, videos, and podcasts with endless stories, commentaries, tactics, tips, and more. The Troutbitten YouTube channel features the Troutbitten Tips series, fly fishing the monorig, and the Troutbitten fly box, all in collaboration with Wilds Media. You'll also find the Fish and Film videos, the Riverside series, and this In Deep interview series, all in their own playlists on Troutbitten YouTube. Thanks for listening, friends, and thanks for being part of the Troutbitten community. So until next time, fish hard, enjoy the day, and find your life on the water.